Good afternoon, this is Tracy Sinclair, and we are getting ready to go down live to a press conference with Mayor Dave Bronson. He is going to be speaking about an update on energy in South Central, and let's go down live.
Well, hey, thanks everyone for being here today. Really appreciate it. So yesterday I met with the mayors and the South Central Mayors Energy Coalition, which includes mayors from along the Alaska's Rail Belt community. It goes anywhere from Homer up to Houston. We created this coalition earlier this year to give Alaskan leaders a platform to collaborate and consider options to increase local energy production for consumers. These communities rely most upon the natural gas produced in Cook Inlet, and I'm very excited with the progress we made yesterday. Please silence your phones. I'm very excited with the progress we've made yesterday in understanding the history and events that led us to where we are today. Last night, a number of Matanuska Electric Association and Chugach Electric Association members experienced some power outages around 12:30 a.m., and I've invited the utility companies here to discuss what happened. So I'd like Tony Zellers to speak to his company.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So I'm Tony Zellers. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Matanuska Electric. Last night about 12:15, I think it's important to notice that the EGS plant, being a dual fuel plant, is unique. But we also, last night's event had nothing to do with the cold weather or fuel supply. The event last night happened because our plant developed a fuel leak in one of the engine halls, and for safety, the safety valves automatically shut and tripping the plant offline. I think it's important to note that we had all our membership back into power in about 25 minutes as we brought the plant back online. So I'll turn it over to Andrew now to talk about Chugach's response.
All right. Thank you, Tony. I'm Andrew Laughlin, Chief Operating Officer with Chugach Electric. As Tony mentioned, there was an event last night, and we had a similar issue. We went into a load shed event. Chugach lost or had one generator trip offline last night during this event, and of course we lost some of our consumers who were tripped off, and this is a systematic thing the utilities do. As we lose generation, we trip a little load off in order to keep the system online and operating. Very quickly thereafter, Chugach was also able to shift the load onto a different plant as we brought more generation online, picked everyone back up. It only took about 25 minutes for us to do that. And as with MEA, this was not related to any sort of fuel supply issues. This was related to just the initial loss in generation. So it was recovered from pretty quickly. And then I'd just like to say that please keep tabs on our social media. It's where you can get the latest and greatest information as to what these events are, what's going on, or what we're doing to respond to them. With that, I'll turn it over to John Sims with NSTAR.
Thanks, Andrew. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking Mayor Bronson and the Coalition of Mayors. So they have been very supportive and completely engaged in this issue as we address the challenges that we have in Cook Inlet and understanding the utility and its operations. So really want to thank them for that. Also want to support and thank the governor, who has also been extremely engaged. I've spoken with him a couple times. He's obviously very interested in what's going on, the status of our pipeline pressures in the systems. Over the last couple days with this cold snap that we've seen, you've probably seen some messaging that's come out from NSTAR Natural Gas and the rest of the utilities on the red, yellow, and green chart. That was an effort that was developed a long time ago when we get these types of cold temperatures to make sure that our system stays viable and stays at an appropriate level of pressure so that we can continue reliable operations. We are still at a green status, but I want to let everyone know that we have been operating on a very thin line between green and yellow. The reason for that is because we operate what's called CINGSA, which is Cook Inlet Natural Gas Storage of Alaska. We are experiencing some challenges with two of the wells down there in CINGSA, which has resulted in a loss of some deliverability. So that's presented some challenges. Now, the thing that should comfort South Central Alaskans is that the utilities, working in collaboration with the producers, have a number of tools that we have in the toolbox to mitigate some of these challenges and some of these risks. And we're working through those. As we see these extreme cold temperatures, please be attentive to your utilities and the messaging that's going out. As Andrew mentioned, they have great social media pages, and last night I was seeing MEA and Chugach Electric communicating with their customers at 12:30 at night, talking about the outages that they have. So please be attentive to those websites, follow along. NSTAR will do the same thing. If you see a situation where we need to ask customers to conserve, then please do so. That would be a condition yellow. But in general, during a green status, obviously, if you conserve energy, it makes an impact on your bills, so we always want to encourage that. But again, just appreciate the opportunity to be here today and thank the mayor again for his support. So I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor.
Thanks, gentlemen, for that. Yeah, so you know, last week, as a matter of conservation and saving on electrical and gas bills, we've asked our departments to turn down the heat when the buildings aren't being used over the weekend and during the week, and to make sure all the lights are turned off. That's something we do at home, and so the taxpayer pays for that, and our job is to conserve as much as possible. And I do encourage folks, day in, day out, year-round, conserve on electricity, conserve on natural gas. This isn't a crisis, but it's just a good thing to do, to use as little as we can to get by. So again, we are taking the lead of the utilities on this, the municipality is, because they're the experts. We're going to communicate what we want to communicate. We're in daily communication with them. All of our communications directors are in communication with utilities, and it's being led by NSTAR. So anyways, thank you very much, and at this time I think the plan is we'll take some questions.
We'll start with Jeff, people on the online. Jeff, do you have any questions? Oh, hold on just a moment. Let's turn you up. All right. There you go. All good.
I just have kind of a general question about our state. You know, we're sitting on hundreds of years of coal and gas. And other places like Russia, I mean, they have, you know, they deliver gas and there's heat. There's no issues like this. I'm just curious what your thoughts are with, we're watching gas and coal, but we're talking about these, you know, these heating problems and electrical problems.
Well, I'm going to let John answer that. That's a bit of a technical thing for him, so I'll have him answer. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Jeff. So there's no doubt about it that not only do we have a lot of gas and coal in the state, we have a lot of gas here in Cook Inlet. And one of the challenges that we've seen here locally is you know, encouraging and getting producers out there to make the investment required to bring that gas to market. Now, I know that the governor and the legislature are evaluating a lot of potential tools that they have to create that type of market that we want to see and that we should have here as Alaskans. But when you look across the nation, you know, early this year, in, you know, the middle of January, there was a similar request for consumers to reduce their consumption because they had issues with the electric grid and the natural gas grid in the Northwest. So if you Google Washington and Oregon gas outage, you'll see some of the challenges, not to the same level, but some of the challenges being experienced across the country. So as utilities, you know, these are things that we typically don't show the general public. We have employees that are working 24 hours a day to make sure that folks, every time they turn on the lights, it works, and every time they turn on the job, we should really be thanking them because they're the ones who are making our system operate. But I think that that's a statewide issue. I think the governor's addressed that. Recent legislation that he's got. I'd argue that we can continue to take it a little bit farther, and we need to have those conversations in Juneau. I'll be there next week to hopefully start some of those conversations about what we need to do to make sure that we're promoting a good environment for businesses to come in here to explore for those resources so that the end users, like utilities and our customers, don't have to be concerned.
All right. Anything else, Jeff? Nope, good to go. Okay, we'll start in the room here. Leslie, do you have a question?
Yeah, Wesley Early with Alaska. Wesley Early with Alaska Public Media. So if I'm understanding you right, it was an equipment failure that caused the outage, and it wasn't sort of related to the cold. But I'm curious, with temperatures sort of set to be pretty cold for the next, you know, at least week and a half, are there concerns that we could see outages due to cold weather?
I'll take that one. So in general, right, I want to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we have in the toolbox. So as we start seeing the pressures on our system drop, right, there are a couple things that we do first. One, we reach out to that storage facility that I mentioned. We ask them to increase their deliverability from their fields. That's a third-party storage service provider, Chugach Electric, NSTAR, Homer Electric, and some interruptible customers utilize that facility to meet obligations that they have. So that's kind of step one. I'd say on an hourly basis with producers, letting them know, hey, we might be calling on additional gas from your fields. So those are kind of the two things that we do behind the scenes to make sure that pressures maintain and that they don't drop. Now, if we continue to see system pressures drop, then we start looking at some of those options that the electric utilities have, for example, switching to diesel. That can make a huge impact on the total demand in the system. It reduces the demand and allows pressures to increase. The other things we can do, we can ask for Golden Valley Electric to send power down the intertie, for example. So there are a number of different tools. I'm not going to list them all, but we can do all those things to make sure that the system stays up. Now, back to your original question, do I have concerns about the rest of the week? I do, because operational challenges happen all the time. And so we've already got a situation at Singza where we have some deliverability challenges. That's kind of why we're here talking about this today. If something else happens on top of that, you're more than likely going to see a condition yellow come out. But, we're going to do our best to make sure that doesn't happen. But it's very, very important that customers stay attentive to the website and to the social media pages of the utilities and the mayor's office and the governor's office, because if that does happen, we're going to need them to react. And it's little measures that the customers can do, right? Just turning your temperature down to 65 degrees makes a huge difference on the system.
I'm Alex with the Anchorage News. John, can you talk about the deliverability issue at Singza? How far down is it? It's 2 out of 5 wells, I believe. And what's it going to take for us to cross that thin line to a yellow? When might that happen?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Alex. So to get into some specifics on Singza, so middle of January, we communicated to customers that we had lost 19% of the total deliverability, which is 150 million cubic feet per day. So losing 19% of that, not too significant. As we started seeing those colder temperatures come in to the South Central region, we started stressing those wells more to make sure we were meeting contractual obligations. That resulted in some deliverability loss out of well number 1. So now we're looking at 2 wells that have been impaired, or at least a reduction in deliverability. To the total facility, it's about 30% reduction, which is about 45 million cubic feet a day. Now, when I was talking earlier about those different tools in the toolbox, we're talking about, we use one tool, that's about 10 million a day. We use another tool, that's another 15 to 20. So, we have to put these things all together to, fill that gap that we see. So last night, we were in a position where we were somewhat strained. We still had multiple levers that we could pull in the toolbox. I think as we start looking at the forecast today, if the temperatures that we're seeing come to fruition, we're going to start, pulling out more of those tools from the toolbox. So, at this point, I'm not concerned. I'm, reasonably confident in the operations of our facilities. But again, it's important that customers stay aware and stay attentive to the information that the utilities are sending out. So it's tough to say that, what the probability of moving to yellow or a different level is. That all depends on temperature and a lot of operational challenges that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
And 45, how much are we demanding a day at these cold temperatures overall?
Yeah, so right now we're probably in the 240 range. So the most we've ever done in our system, on NSTAR's system, is 254 million cubic feet a day. That was back in 2017, I believe.
Okay.
So we're looking at more than likely hitting a system peak record today or tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe both.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Lauren Maxwell, Alaska's News Source. I have 2 questions, but I'm really trying to wrap my head around your explanation for the 2 wells that are down. They
Yeah.
have issues that are unrelated to the cold, but the cold is increasing the need for gas, and so that's... Could you make it really simple?
Yeah, no, I apologize. So I would say they are somewhat related to the cold in that we don't utilize or strain, put the stress on those facilities unless we call for that demand to come out of them. So what specifically on well number 3, what we started experiencing was some sanding in. We didn't lose the well completely, but that's the result of high pressures coming out of those wells, and anytime you really strain and put a lot of pressure on those types of infrastructure, those types of assets, they have the potential to fail. That happens throughout the entirety of Cook Inlet and has been happening for 60-plus years. And that's things that the producers do on a day-to-day basis. That's one of the reasons why it's so expensive to operate here, because when they sand in, you have to fix them. If you don't fix them, then you have a permanent loss in deliverability. So that's what we're seeing on the wells in Singsa for well number 3 specifically. When the pipeline or when the demand is reduced, we'll go in there and fix them. We can't risk doing that today because we're still getting some volume out of those wells. But that's just one of the rations is the one thing is it's deep and it's dark down there. And until you actually get some equipment on site to look down hole, it's tough to say what the issue is.
So, just to clarify too, I know you said that we're not in code yellow, we're still in code green, but is NSTAR asking people to cut back on their energy use? Is it asking people to conserve?
Not at this point. I think it's just good practice. I mean, it makes an impact on your bills. I think, from a utility perspective, we want all customers to conserve as much as possible. They're valuable resources that we have. Let's conserve them and use them wisely. If you're not, if you're not in a room and you have the light on, shut it off, right? It impacts your bills. Same thing with, a slight temperature turned down, that can make a difference on your bills. Let's conserve energy, conserve natural gas. That's not the same as us moving to yellow and making that request for customers to make those reductions.
But that could happen in the near future?
We're hoping that it won't. And as long as we kind of maintain status quo, I don't think we'll need to. But it's a potential risk out there. And it's important to understand this isn't just because we're having the operational issues at Singsa, right? There are utility issues that happen all the time. Our employees are fantastic, along with the rest of the railbelt utilities, at fixing those problems before they impact the customers. So this is good practice, whether we're dealing with extreme temperatures or not.
Any other questions in the room? All right, go ahead, Alex.
I would like to ask about the MEA problems. There's only 2 engines, I think, right? So one of them had a leak, I think.
No, there's actually 10
there's
engines.
10 engines.
10 units,
Okay.
yeah. So.
And then one of them had a leak. Is this a normal thing? And it just happened to coincidentally happen on one of the coldest days?
Yeah, it was more coincident. It is not a normal thing. So with a gas leak on an engine, we got detectors throughout the plant. They detect the gas leak and they shut the safety valves as a safety measure. We isolated the engine fairly fast and started to restore power, started the units back up for that. And by now, I know it was a flange issue, a leak at a flange, and they've got that fixed now, so at the plant.
I understand a misaligned pipe maybe
Yes.
caused it.
Misaligned flange, the pipes joined at a flange, and they became misaligned and it leaked, so.
Did it just get bumped by machinery or something?
Not necessarily by machinery, so these are big engines. They're 18-cylinder engines, so there's a lot of vibrations, so they can work themselves loose and misalign for that. We periodically touch the engine about every 2,000 hours of runtime. We touch the engine to go through and try to make sure that, but this one may have been missed or something of that nature, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right, and then Jeff has one more question online.
Yeah, for John Sims for NSTAR, I'm curious how much right now extra gas is Hillcorp giving you from their storage? I understand there's a contract provision where if there's a higher demand, they give more gas delivery. So how much are giving you extra right now? And then how much do they have? Like how long do these temperatures last before they have an issue with their storage? How much gas do they have in storage?
Yeah, so thanks for that question, Jeff. So, on a seasonal basis, Hillcore is utilizing their storage to meet contractual obligations. As far as how much they have left, I can't answer that question. I'm not privy to that information. Our operations folks in our gas control and their gas control and on the pipeline, they do a fantastic job communicating what they have available, which can be different at different points in time, right? So it really depends on how things transpire throughout the day, and ultimately what the customers are demanding. So I can't speak to their facilities and what they currently have available. That would be a question for them.
All right, if there's no more questions in the room, we will.
Oh, I do have some other questions, if that's okay. For John.
Related to this issue?
What's that?
Related to the topic? Yeah, okay.
There's already been one step taken because of the struggling wells. Is that keeping Golden Valley Electric not sending energy their way, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So on the intertie, one of the collaborative efforts that utilities do is because it's cheaper to generate power from our region as opposed to Fairbanks. We typically, we being the royal we with utilities, send power up to Fairbanks. It's a cost savings measure. It's the whole point of the intertie. We have ceased sending power up to Golden Valley Electric because of the strain that we're seeing on the system right now. And as I mentioned earlier, that's an option for them to actually generate power from Fairbanks and send it back down. But yes, we have ceased what's called economy energy sales in the electric.
10 years ago when we had that
Specifically.
thin line between yellow and green.
So I've been here since 2005. This is the most strained I've seen the system. And in large part, it's because of the outage or the reduction in deliverability at Singsa. We wouldn't be having the same conversations because, again, that's 45 million cubic feet a day that has been removed from the system.
And that's 30% or 19%?
That's 30% of the total facility. And if this were to happen 10 years ago, there would be ample supplies to kind of cover that gap. So what we're seeing here, I think, is amplifying the long-term challenges, which is what we're looking to address, the royal we, down in Juneau with, hopefully bills that incentivize exploration and production in Cook Inlet.
And in terms of million cubic feet, how thin is the thin line? Is that 10 million cubic feet, and then we got to go to yellow, or?
Well, again, it's not just a specific number. We evaluate all the situations and what the circumstances are. Timing of day, we have a lot of steps, and time of day makes a big difference on all those things. For example, one of our peak demands on the system, pipeline system, is the evening hours right when people get home from work. Right, they come home from work, they turn on their gas stoves, they turn on the lights in the house. We see a ramp up of demand during that time, and then right about 9 o'clock at night, you start seeing that drop back down. So the point at which we start to have challenges operationally largely depends on what we're seeing on the system and what time of day it is.
And we might just hit a record tomorrow.
I would expect we hit a record tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah, I put money on tonight that we hit a system throughput record, but it all depends on temperatures.
And that's like 300 and something versus 250, right?
Well, I would guess we're probably up in the 260, 270 range. 254 was the highest we've ever been, but that's speculation at this point. But like I said, even with hitting record throughputs, I think we're still in a really good place, unless something operationally happens that would cause us to.
Okay.
And 30% is 30% of all gas that NSTAR gets from Cook Inlet? What is
That 30% number is the reduction being experienced at the storage facility, Cook Inlet Natural Gas Storage, Alaska. 30% of 150 million, which is normally available from that facility.
So 30% of your gas
That comes from
available to you right now.
that comes from Singsa,
Comes from-
specifically from that asset.
Okay, we'll take one more question. Jeff has got one question for Tony.
Just for the MEA guy, I was wondering, are you guys preparing to switch to diesel? How long does that take? And is what happened last night related to that?
Well, thank you, Jeff, for that question. What happened last night, I'll start with that one first, is not related to that at all. So last night was just an equipment failure. Happened at a bad time with everything else going on, but it does happen from time to time. For the EGS plant to switch to diesel, it's basically an operator function on the computer screen on each engine. All he's got to do is push a button. The engine will switch to diesel from natural gas. It does not miss a stroke. You do not have to shut the engine down, and you'll be running on diesel. So they are a diesel engine made to run on natural gas, so they really like going back to diesel. So, that answer your question there, Jeff?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you guys coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
And extra picture. You guys want to do-
Oh, John says he might want to.
And that was Mayor Dave Bronson and representatives from Chugach Electric, as well as Matanuska Electric Association, and also NSTAR. And basically, there were a couple of power outages last night, which at these temperatures is a little scary. But in the valley, Matanuska Electric Association, they said it was an equipment failure not related to those cold temperatures. Chugach, it was a case of passing the load around. I didn't quite understand, but again, not a supply issue and not really dealing with the cold. John Sims from NSTAR spoke a fair bit about gas supply, and what he was talking about was that there is a chart, red, yellow, green. We're still in the green stage, which means normal operations, but he said we are very close to that yellow line, and that yellow line, when they get into the yellow, that's when they start asking people to conserve. He said he thinks we're in a good place unless there's an operational issue. One of the issues right now is 2 wells in Cook Inlet are not functioning properly. He says there's a challenge with them, and it's equaling about 30% of the gas that is stored down with this Cook Inlet system down in Cook Inlet. He says it's always a good practice to conserve. It helps with your bill, and of course, it just helps in general because of the resource. But he did say it's the most strained he's seen the system since 2005. Again, though, he said we're in a good place unless there is an operational issue. We will continue to follow this story. Our crew was down in the room live, so we'll have more tonight at 4, 5, 6, and 10, and of course at noon on Alaska's News Source. So join us then.